in the fridge. You could do 2 hours on the counter instead, but I think this tastes better and it'll be easier to work with cold. Right on the counter, I am rolling this out. No flour dusting. I want it to stick to the counter. The sticking will keep it from snapping back like a rubber band. I'm trying to get it pretty evenly round and a little wider than my screen is. Not quite there yet. Push down hard from the middle, then push out. Hand stretching would not get the outer ring thin enough for stuffed crust. There we go. I'm going to peel that off the counter. If the dough wasn't cold, it'd be more likely to tear right here. Now on top of the screen this goes, and I'll try to position it as evenly over the screen as possible. We need a lot of very thin excess dough around the edge to fold over and seal the cheese. So I'm just rolling out the skirt that's hanging over the edge there. Again, I want it to stick. The counter is keeping it stretched out for me. It's important that you have a lot of excess all the way around. I've got a short bit there, so I'm tearing excess from elsewhere and grafting it on. There you go. Looks like we flayed somebody alive. Time for our cheese ring. Around and around and around we go. 3, 4, and wet with water, and wet with water. Now fold and crimp and fold and crimp. If you don't have a ton of excess folded back onto the interior of the pizza like this, the cheese ring is very likely to leak into the center. Having a lot of excess also means that you don't have to stretch the dough so tight over the cheese that it might tear and then leak through the outer side or the bottom. Over here I've got some butter in a pan, and I'm going to put in some herbs and spices and enough salt to make it sandy in there. Since this pizza will have a lot of untopped crust, we might as well make that surface taste better, top and sides all over. And now that everything is greasy and your fingertips won't stick to the dough, you can go back and press hard to seal the cheese ring in there. It's taken us a long time to prepare this pizza, and if it was just sitting on a wooden or metal peel right now, it would be hopelessly stuck by the time we tried to shimmy it into the oven. This is why for stuffed crust, I think it makes a lot of sense to bake on a screen or directly on parchment paper. Sauce is on, Parmesan from the can. Sorry, that's just the taste of pizza to me. Use what you want. Now, here's my weird mozzarella pellets. You don't have to do this. The reason I'm doing it is my new oven has proved to be kind of disappointing for pizza making. It just doesn't get hot enough. By the time my crust is brown, my cheese has overheated and squeezed out buckets of orange grease. By putting chilled cheese on in huge chunks, I am significantly slowing the melting process. My oven's on full blast, and I preheated my baking steel for an hour. Without a steel or a stone, the bottom would not brown. I also find I need to switch to the broiler halfway through with this oven. That's the top element, but every oven is different. This oven also just doesn't seem to get much heat onto the sides of things on any setting, but that still looks pretty darn good. Oh, hey, it's my lovely wife, Lauren. What's she got there? Now, when a certain well-known restaurant chain does stuffed crust pizza, they are using a special blend designed to hold its shape when heated. This cheese is going to flatten and give off steam that makes a hollow dome above it. But I don't think that's a bad thing. That cavity makes for kind of a croissant-like texture as you bite down through it. The pizza screen has given the bottom a golden finish that reminds me of airport pizza. Screens are popular in food service, but I kind of dig that for stuffed crust. Feels appropriate somehow.
Cheers.
And hey, if you like pizza, consider buying Lauren's latest YA novel. It's kind of a cheap
Auto shutdown enabled. Press shutdown disabled.
Addendum, a sort of light version of the regular index to cover a few extra details about a race that already has video, in this case the Zindi. While there's a great deal of information on several of the Zindi, others have next to nothing on details such as the subjects of this video, the insectoids, the aquatics, and the now extinct avians. Of these three, the insectoid have the them. Your typical insectoid is genderless and lives for around about a decade, and with such a short lifespan, these bugs are frequently seen as jumpy, jittery, and performing everything with a great deal of urgency. While they may appear like this to an outsider, to them this is normal. Their whole lives are sort of sped up, and with compound eyes processing visual data at many times the speed of a mammalian brain, it's no surprise their movements seem quick. A cool fact that I stumbled across while researching compound eyes is that some variations can detect the direction light is travelling, not just the intensity. They reproduce asexually, and due to their short lifespans and the time-consuming nature of space travel, every insectoid ship has a hatchery where the infant young are placed in egg sacs. These eggs hang from the ceiling, presumably an evolutionary trait to keep them out of reach of predators, and they can deploy a neurotoxin in defense, which when sprayed onto an interloper's skin, can cause the individual to become protective of the eggs. This makes it dangerous for anyone except a Xindi insectoid to enter their hatchery. That and the fact that you might accidentally step on one. At only hours old, an infant insectoid is already mobile and capable of climbing, running, scurrying, and in a far more advantageous state than a human child would be. Biologically, the insectoid Xindi do not breathe through their mouths. They have small ducts down the side of their thorax, through which air is pushed. This is why all their clothing leaves their sides exposed. The fact that they possess an exoskeleton carapace means that they're actually quite hardy on the outside, and suggests that any clothing worn by them is either supplementary to defensive purposes, like armour, or out of a sense of modesty, or to denote status. The last is most likely, as we see the insectoid counsellors wearing brown robes. The drab colour scheme and simplicity of the clothing can be attributed to how their compound eyes view colour, being far better at discerning corners and shapes than hues. They never wore headgear, not even in combat, as this would severely limit their eyesight and potentially cover their antennae, deny them access to their abilities to sense temperature and air movement. And as no air passes through their mouths, they clack and clatter their mandibles to create sounds. These noises translate into a pattern of speech that can be learned, but not replicated by most species. Most Xindi learn a common language, as well as aquatic and insectoid, to aid in relations among the people. The insectoid Xindi are often quick to make up their minds on things, as their short lives would suggest, and this often puts them at odds with the other council members who would rather debate and then act on consensus. They even come into frequent conflict with the reptilians, unless they're in agreement. It's not that they are stubborn like the reptilians. In fact, you can convince an insectoid to change its mind, just good luck catching them before they've already acted on their decision. Such a rapid world view comes into complete contrast with our second Xindi species, the aquatics. These Xindi are slow to decide, often taking days to contemplate a course of action from every angle. Unsurprisingly, this frustrates the insectoid and reptilian species, and even the primates find their patience is tried. However, the arboreals respect this level of thoughtfulness. As a member of the council, Kaifet Amansor was a typical representative of her race, albeit one from a wealthy family legacy, the Ibex dynasty. Their entire social structure revolved around the appointment of representatives and decision-making based on consensus, but the fact that their councillor was a powerful businessman from a proud family line shows that the influence in their culture is wielded by the powerful. When talking with the aquatics, it is necessary to remember that they possess an innate distrust of the spoken word. Now, sound travels further through water than in air, and as such, raised voices are often perceived as threatening, but equally, hushed tones are untrusted. This mistrust likely stems from the fact that their own form of communication is so vastly different from ours, as they communicate through sonar-like whale song. They therefore have a difficult time understanding land-based languages, and don't even have the benefit of sharing a room with the other races that even the insectoids enjoy. Even their eyes are adapted for underwater sight.
Eternal darkness has arrived.
Air pressure and clearly read body language
Thanatos.
others. A pane of glass will forever separate the aquatics from all of that, meaning that the tones of voice are all they have to gauge emotion on, and that can be faked. The best way to address an aquatic is to be respectful and speak with confidence, clearly outlining your words and intentions. Physically, they possess some of the same facial features as most Xindi, the forehead ridges and the cheekbones, but they also have a strong, powerful tail and arms to allow for industry and construction, which they excel at, being the species that then constructed the Xindi orb that was to destroy the Earth and the Federation before it was founded. Perhaps the slow, methodical pace of the Aquatics partners well with the construction projects, as their ships dwarf other Xindi vessels. Their spaceships are the biggest and the most powerful of the fleets, and filled to the brim with water. Females of the species were bigger in size too, and they had a preference for darker rooms, as too much light was uncomfortable for them, again because they spent their entire existence underwater. And lastly, there's the avian species of the Xindi. Not much data exists on them at all, as they are extinct by the time of Enterprise, having perished when the insect forces upon Xindus, leading to the Great Diaspora. In fact, we only have 2 images of them, and one is a skull, the other is a drawing, not a photograph or a rendering. What is known is that they were a spacefaring race at least 4,000 years before the humans, establishing several colony worlds in what would eventually become the area of space known as the Expanse. But despite this diversity in location, somehow they all died out. So, like an aquatic, let's overanalyze them. So, the skull that we see on the desk is that of a Xindi avian and was modelled on that of a giraffe. The skull we see is approximately 28 inches long, 12 inches wide and 17 inches tall, therefore around 71 centimeters long. Now, as it's a creature that spends most of its time in flight, its bones must be pneumatized, or full of air pockets to reduce weight. However, it's more than just the weight of a bird that affects its wingspan and size. There are other factors, such as speed and the method of flight. From the image, we see that the avians possess fur and leathery wings, closer to...
You rock!
Thanks.
Bliss! No problem. Fine.
So had you heard of that house on the hill? I hear it's haunted and crawling with all types of evil. The client said a baby let you know. Not one answer to what might be behind all these doors. Knocking and waiting for some sort of reply. It seems there's nobody in here and I want to know why. I can feel a shiver crawling way up my spine, but I know there's something that's waiting to see.
Oh, the game started?
Sorry, I was at the gym.
From the Dragon's Maw! My power cannot be contained! Out of map!
Feeling a bit cold.
They are your souls to me.
There's just a few more doors, it won't take many more. Just one at a time.
I'll cut you down.
It's gonna be fine in the end. It's so simple then. Oh, baby, I got a bone to pick with you and I'm done with your little game. I opened the last door, I don't know what's in store. Final encounter was so unforeseen. Everything I thought spooky wasn't quite what it seemed. The
Enemy
evidence
missing
I
middle.
came across gave me just the thing. I understand more spooky and assassin. Lost and so lonely and so misunderstood. Turns out the thing
Thanks.
she loved most to do I
No
don't.
problem.
The shock of what had happened lasted year after year, and so the family did everything to make her appear. Surrounded by a thousand, I can't help but feel it.
Your middle tower is under attack!
You cannot escape death.
face!
grip grows stronger. No problem.
Enemy missing middle!
I'll attack right lane.
You gonna start getting kills too, or?
We'll cut your life streams.
2 for 1.
But it's okay, cause I'm gonna repair it.
I'll cut you down.
It's of my own making. Take it back to the start.
Your left tower is under attack. Enemy missing left! Your middle tower is under attack.
I know we can make it better than it ever was. I know we can make it.
Awaits you.
That was easy.
End here. This is not the end. Bear your souls to me.
I know there's things to change. The path that I could choose is losing. I must find a new one. Our dates are not yet written. I will take the warning. Choose a way that's less destructive.
Speaking of killing sprees, we've got one coming up.
It look bad, but we only see one path. Can't you see? We are free to choose our destiny and be the way we want to be. A second chance to believe, 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 believe,
No problem. Your time has come.
Forgive me, Master. I must go all out.
Enemy missing left tower is under attack.
Twice the carnage.
An ally has left the game.
I know we can make it better. I know we can make it better than it ever was. I know we can make it better.
Resurgence.
From the dragon's maw! My power cannot be contained!
Come to me.
Your left tower is under attack.
I'll cut you down.
Will I be myself again?
Your left tower is under attack.
And where does it begin?
Enemy missing middle!
I don't know.
Bear your souls to me.
That made me chosen by a force beyond control.
Your left tower is under attack.
And I don't know if I will.
Even the immortals shall fear death now.
Losing who I
You should probably stop queuing with that guy.
Your left tower is under attack.
Leaving behind the comfort that I know.
Yikes.
I own a stranger to myself. Born enemy
Ultimate down! Your right tower is under attack.
For the reasons I've been chosen by
Let me aid you.
Your left tower is under attack.
Hey,
Don't worry, champ. I'm sure you helped. You got moxie, kid. I'll give you that one.
Your left tower is under attack. Your left tower
human. Free will is miles away. I heard you play in the digital cabaret, but I'm okay. I won't disobey if you take me.
is under attack.
I will cut your life stream.
Speaking of killing sprees, we've got one coming up.
Thanks!
Someone on the other team got owned.
But this is who I am.
Come to me. Bear your souls to me.
You're fantastic, bro.
Enemy missing left! Enemies in right lane!
I'll cut you
Your middle
down.
tower is under attack.
Oh, hello. My name is Joey Drew. You must be here to learn about the wonderful world of anime, hundreds of drawings, just like these.
Enemy missing middle!
Your favorite video, where you can dream it harder, more dream it. Dreams, 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 they need dreams come true. Oh, hello, Bendy.
And that's the magic of creation. If you want to keep his face on the can, they can darn well pay for it. I want to be taken for a ride and go downstairs and visit.
Just a pencil and a dream. Gee, death itself. Now that is a beautiful and positive silly thought.
Boris Maker, I'll tell you later. It's either seen as us careening down an elevator. Must have been dreaming the people naked through the gate.
Did somebody report that
and
guy?
don't give up.
Well, we never had this many levels as the excavator. What's so scary about a library and a record
That's my
player?
boy right
And the
there.
angel in a
He can
basement
frag
was
anyone.
lapidated. This is kind of tasteful. Alice, tell me who's your decorator? I'll never make a lady wait. I guess you say that I'm a player. Angel was a date, and I would really hate to aggravate her.
that was a big brain play.
Hold you 'cause you go down. Guess I better go say it. Tell me that chicken up my palace gonna medicate a fallacy. The dream is the mentality to generate the rail against an animator. Alice, get back on your paper, rhyming on the multiplay. My lyrics work on several layers.
I won't let you down.
It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. And I'm the chef.
Their souls with a spider and a wrench and a thirst to quench. Hi-ho, it's off to work we go.
Your middle tower is under attack. Giving you the willies as I'm tipping up my steamboat. Lifted by the gods and beheaded by
middle
the
tower
rods.
is
Headed black spots for the cloud of this beer. I'm headed for the bread line. Never ever meddled with the pencil-lead and bread lines. Monkey with a wrench might thump you in the head. Henry, can you see the headlines? Elevated dead by an enemy he designed. This was an angel who swallowed a spider. It wriggled inside her, and out came the striker. Who'd have thought you silly little villain for the killer who would be killing for your heroin, so now we're not dying.
If you thought the demons were your problem right now, well, the angels on the stage, so find out.
souls to me.
That you want to find out. How about me, machine of right, those lights down. So you're on the path of the starving artist, but at the heart, well, the art is heartless. Ever seen have to be skeptics? Started,
There's no need to be scared now. It's all the fun of the fairground. And I would say I'm on fair ground to take a little revenge now. Everybody's heard of Bertram Piedmont, because my work pertains a certain frisson. And I've been creep all disturbing demons are out of season, so must you keep on. Are you caught in the spin? Well, it's a shame that your organs and limbs will be lost in the ink. Well, it's awfully grim. Did you want to be him? What's a better man than you've ever been? It's a
Try not dying next time.
Ultimate down. Helter skelter, no help.
Time to take action.
Killing people is rad. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think anyone's surprised.
These holes, you may have been searched from the span of time, but it's part of the mind once you recalled. So much along to the count of four, a stone to the scoundrel crowd. You've grown, stranded and down to this mangled form. To a man in his ear was an act of war.
Laughable to think you'll been back to the north.
With ink, but no malpractice, folks.
Good Henry, you never gave a crap
Your
before.
right tower
We trapped
is
you
under
down
attack.
neath the factory
Your
floor.
right tower has been
I'll cut you down.
More to find the keys in chapter 4.
Remind me, have you heard that before?
If you thought the demons were your problem right now, well, the angels on the stage, so find
They
out.
are your souls to me.
Find out. How about the machine and ride those pipes down.
You cannot escape death.
But at the heart, well, the art is heartless. Ever seen a masterpiece get discarded? Started the pot for the
Don't worry, champ. I'm sure you helped.
But now I've got to block them.
I will cut your life stream.
I'll be Proximus. I live for my work, but I die to stop them. Stationary shouldn't talk back. I need a drink, come on, the break, talk back.
Someone on the other team got home. Voices are telling me to keep.
That's all, folks.
You gonna start getting kills too, or?
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the cartoon. And a huge thanks to all the generous folks over on Patreon for keeping this
Enemy
dream
missing
train
middle.
rolling. If you enjoyed the show, then why not take a play with some more?
Unfortunate.
Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that little old bell. Or you can even check out the merchandise for the Patreon if you like. This still doesn't have enough dreams. Dreams, dreams, dreams. If I have to tell you one more time.
Your left Phoenix is under attack.
Bitter chill.
The fury of a master wizard.
Beyond the ocean.
Arcane Man Tempus Odium. Observe true power.
Don't worry, champ. I'm sure you helped.
Enemy missing middle. Your time has come.
Okay.
Yes, I had a head start on these fools. Doesn't take a winter blast for Jack to keep cool. For isolation in the deep blue can be cool.
I will cut you down.
Fathom a fathom as if the ocean opened up and I was cast in a chasm upon a swimming seascape. Genetic accidents happen, but don't blame Eve. The cause of the fall had to be Adam. If you believe the sweat of your brow ought to be yours. Listen to Andrew Ryan, the philosophical entrepreneur. He might have put me on fast, but I'll get past this. Retreat! Pain was an atlas shrug. The rapture where you can manufacture evolution. Natural selection's happening
They are
faster.
your
When you
souls.
suffer
Someone on the other team got owned.
Enemy missing right! An engine never rests in a vest. It's like a Lazarus.
Retreat.
Come to me. Ultimate is ready! You foul creature. Your time has come.
I treated your ugliness like an infection.
That's why I took a wrench when I went to the
Ultimate
dentist,
is
and my
down.
smile was dazzling after bashing his head in. And weapons, making effective inventions. I'll make you vanish like Houdini when I'm turning you legend. I call it artwork
wanted censor, forget it, I got a killer's disposition. I guess it's genetic. Death is a choice.
Even the immortal shall see death now.
The sun will not get on them. Shackles remind me I started from the bottom. Cherry poked. I'm a grown man, damn it, I ain't scared of shot. Now my veins are on fire. Rearrange the DNA, sounds like playing with fire.
I won't let you down.
What? How can this be?
By the parasite inside them, but if you're a parasite and Ryan's eyes, you put the silence.
The great and strong will not yield to the weak and feeble. Better change your DNA if you'd like to fight as equals.
That guy was a bum.
Rides on getting power to the people.
Hey, wait a minute.
Now let me feel my craving at the circus of battle.
Forgive me, Master. I must go all out.
Now I'm wrong on the stage. Your team has destroyed the enemy tower. Just a pawn in the game. The something is sending a
Time to take action.
This ends now. I will cut you.
Speaking of killing sprees, we've got one coming up.
Death is but a door. Time is but
That
a
wasn't
window.
very cash money of you. That's my boy right there. He can frag anyone.
Time to take action.
A frozen touch. Your team destroyed the left enemy tower.
How else could I achieve feats of telekinesis? And I'm an expert
Pardon, Master. Lives on. I must go all out.
From a hornet nest. The gatherer's guard is even
The chill.
I've been cleaning them out. I can afford the back.
Do you wish your waist was slimmer and your chin was chiseled more?
Careful, vanity could send us into civil war. In a utopia, who's gonna wanna scrub the toilet? The people in Apollo Square got no other choice. I know how this is gonna end, but I don't wanna hold it. Time that I destroy it. Just relax, Big Daddy, I command you. Strike a pose, smile for the camera. I think objectively, just like Ayn Rand does. Attention, will the real Fontaine stand up? A man chooses
Savor the
like a
wolf.
slave who never strays from the path that his master paved. Follows every order and does everything they say. Now would you kindly obey?
Retreat! Okay. Your right tower is under attack.
I will cut your life streams.
Enemy ultimate down. Yikes. Enemy ultimate down.
Come to me. You cannot escape death. Come to me.
Retreat.
Who huffed into the mic like that? Who was it?
Literally, 3v1, we're okay, yeah, you're still, good job.
Roll up and put down your controller. Forget the clock, the tabletop is what the cause of. So grab some paper and start taking down the scores. But don't forget you're up against the chairman of the board. Right then, games night everyone.
Can somebody report that guy?
I know what my money's on.
Your right
If
tower
you're into
is
causing
under
a
attack.
family schism, consider some tabletop capitalism. A battle of talented man, I'm so talented, mopping up profit with Randy and calluses. Isn't much use for financial analysis. Cankerall throws in the throes of paralysis. Golly, it's very nice crushing the parasites. Man, I'm in paradise. Give me a paradise. Hold 'em, I blow 'em, I roll 'em, I'm stolen, I'm token right open the dough, and I'm holding the dough, and I'm throwing at homes about portfolio. I'm
Your
monopoly,
middle
go
tower
to a
is
top of
under
the
attack.
I'm a polished demolisher, dropping hotels right on top of my foes. If you stop on your boat or my property, know that it's probably honestly gotta be more than the cost of the whole of the global economy. So you should just off and off.
You killed someone.
You can't afford an apology. All your accountants would flounder and wobble. The top of
You
my
should
profit would bubble.
probably stick to it.
Battle ready.
All that I'm making, I'm taking abroad. So send me to jail and then pay off my bail with your rent. Have you thought about having your assets absorbed? Extorting before, what's cutting the cord? A community beauty award. You pitifully bid in futility. I've got the roads and the rails and utilities. So bring the waterworks, the tears will oil the gears of my infamy. Hid in the living room, set on the
Don't
floor.
worry,
Imagining
champ, I'm
on
sure
the
you
cover of
helped.
Forbes. I'm turning this city upside down.
Retreat
Really
right
amount
lane.
to You flipping the board. Now I know nobody likes a loot box economy.
Arcane Manor.
But I think we can all agree on a community chest.
Enemy ultimate down.
Roll up, I put down your controller. Forget the steam sale, I'm a steamroller. Yeah, the 12-year-old who next month told me bolster up your scores. But now, my friend, you're up against the chairman of the board. Think you can beat me? Winning is my middle name, which does not make it a proper noun. Have you heard the word upon the street? The nerds prefer our words discreetly, neatly placed upon a sheet when we compete. Words of fringes for the weak, a cheap pretender to the peak of wordy splendor. Classic Scrabble can unleash, except you see it never leaves me satisfied. With standard boards are utilised. I play my Scrabble supersized. It makes the points
Enemy
for
disappointed!
They take your mosaic, not have a mosaic, because when I am placing my tiles and I'm making the plane and they play before playing in cubic linguistic linguistic forte. I'm a dictionary, kicking my score into space, or at least to the corners. A double what score is for four, but I'm playing for triple or more. Stacking multiples up on the board. Making it single record, taking it for the 10. The corner, the pen, and the sword could never compare to the weapons I brought for the four. 7 letters is all I need to do more. Illiterate all the taking that Shakespeare could ever afford. My lexicon's better than anything ever attempted before. With
Hey,
glittering elegance,
wait a
back to the whatever the letter to give. My diddly bliss, I administer liberally. I'll play a cure and then like a
Big brain gamer.
slinging these nouns and verbs.
Someone on the other team got owned.
Some of the rhymes you've heard, face it, you couldn't find the words.
Speaking of killing sprees, we've got you're gonna start getting kills. Double the kills, double the bills. Forgive me, master.
Retreat.
I must go. Just like my hopes and dreams.
Your team has destroyed a right enemy tower.
I suppose you're wondering why I've gathered you all here. It's the murder. And I'll be first to shed some light.
Hey.
Now Mr. Blast is on the ground. For the primemost power. To you that here and now, in this crumbling country out, amongst this strange something crowd, a murderer is on the
Congratulations.
The bats than birds, so let's look to them for the next comparison. Alongside pterosaurs, they also had teeth rather than beaks, again suggesting more of a mammalian or reptilian alignment, and horn-like structures atop their head. From this image, provided the scaling is correct, then the standard avian was a whopping 2.5 meters tall. Nowhere near as tall as some of the winged dinosaurs from Earth's history, but dwarfing a human and the other Zindi. What about its wingspan? Well, that looks to be around 3.6 meters per wing times 2 plus shoulder width puts the wingspan at around 7.6 meters. From paleontologists measuring the skulls of pterosaurs, they determined that a 75 centimeter skull is supported by a 7 meter wingspan on average, which in turn would be around 100. This is supported more or less by the wingspan to weight ratios that I collected from researching this topic. Seriously, I had to draw up a graph and everything. The one thing we do see of the avian legacy is their architecture on the council planet. This eyrie is a network of caverns and sculpted stone, carved into the solid edifices of towering peaks, only as I said, but the race is surrounded